So one of the glaring issues when it came to Generation 5, mostly with Make Your Mark and Tell Your Tale, and to an extent the comics, but mostly Tell Your Tale and Make Your Mark, more so Make Your Mark, was the fact that it seemed to not just go all over the place, kind of jump the shark in the eyes of many fans, but it's also the fact that they would reference certain characters by name or by description, in Make Your Mark. They would reference certain locales, and certain events and everything by name or by description. But yet, after a while, they would stop doing that and go in a completely different direction. It'd be like, okay, you were off to a good start, and then you dropped off. What's going on here? It's like they would go up and down like a roller coaster nonstop. Like, or I wouldn't say nonstop, but no, more along the lines of a roller coaster that, went up and down, twirl around, but didn't know what direction to go in to get to its final destination. That's kind of what it was like in the eyes of many fans. And the reason for this wasn't because of the fact that they weren't trying. They were. They were trying their best to connect both Generation 4, Friendship is Magic, and Make Your Mark Generation 5, as one. They were trying their best to do that. But this is where it gets interesting because it seems Discovery Family, that's right, Discovery Family, formerly the Hub, owns the rights to certain characters. You heard me. Discovery Family, the Hub, right now, thanks to Hasbro, owns the rights for who knows how long to certain characters. That's no joke. That is no joke. Apparently, that's the word going around, and that's why Make Your Mark and, somewhat Tell Your Tale, and to an extent, the comics, were kind of a confusing mess. Because all the material that was needed or would be needed for Make Your Mark basically was being kept, I wouldn't say hostage, but kept at a distance, from Netflix, from Hasbro, from Boulder Media, and those working on Make Your Mark and Tell Your Tale. They were kept from a distance only to be released for a certain price. That's right. Basically, the only way Discovery Family would allow any of the characters to be used or any of the locales to be acknowledged by name or utilized is if Hasbro, Boulder Media, and Netflix and whoever else paid them a fee. Now, how much that fee would have been, we don't know. But that's what it would have taken for a lot of things to be, put into the equation storyline wise for Make Your Mark to help it make a little less confusing sense. I mean, true, people would still be a little mixed about it because it's like you're jumping from one to another, and I can understand that. But I believe, in my honest opinion, if Discovery Family would have allowed them just to use these characters, and use these locations and everything without saying, hey, pay us money, to use them, then I think Make Your Mark would have less criticism, mixed criticism, kind of being thrown in its face. That's what it would have had. Less mixed criticism being thrown in its face. Why? Because that way, you would have at least a more fuller idea of what's going on. You'd have a more fuller idea of what's going on. I mean, when people saw the movie and they saw everything in there, they're like, oh yeah, this is going to be good. G5 is going to be great. It's going to be a great continuation and extension of G4. But then yet you get to the series and it's like, you're asking yourself what happened. What happened here? What occurred and everything? What got, I guess you could say lost, in the translation or lost in the transmission or lost in the transferring of, I guess you could say character designs and stories and all that. It's like, what happened? And apparently it was Discovery Family that stepped in and said, you don't own those characters, we do. Now, whether or not whether or not that means they own the rest of the main 7, if you will, Twilight excluded, Twilight and Spike excluded, unless they own the rights to the rest of the main 7, there shouldn't be an issue for them not to be included as well. We saw them at the beginning of New Generation in that little short animation tease, so there shouldn't be any reason they shouldn't be, utilized in the series. Now, what I'm thinking could happen, and why there is a speculation and rumor that Chapter 7 will happen, but not until later next year, maybe even 2025. The reason there is a speculated rumor and discussion and report going around that potentially could happen is due to the fact that I think Hasbro is trying to work out an agreement with Discovery Family so they could utilize those characters. They can utilize those locations. They can acknowledge certain moments and events that occurred in G4 to help really connect G5 to it. I think that's why, in my opinion, Telltale is being focused on first. Not just because it's more viewable, it's got more views, it's become more watchable, and and it's helped sell the merchandise as best as it could. It's not just that. I think it's also the fact that it gives Hasbro time to work on trying to connect G4 to G5 by trying to get the rights to the characters. That's what I'm thinking is happening, in my opinion. Now, you might say, well, that really shouldn't matter now because, they took care of Opaline. That connection to, G4 pretty much has been closed now. And you might be right. Maybe you're right. Maybe we're not going to have to worry about that. But you can't tell me there aren't other story arcs or other moments in stories, like I said, story arcs and moments that they may not want to explore in the future. Because they will. They may want to look into certain cast of characters from G4 and be like, okay, we want to bring that character in, or we want to reference that moment and everything. We want to do this, we want to do that. You can't tell me they aren't thinking about that, but realizing that the only way they could do it is to have the rights, in the palm of their hands. So to me, I believe that within the next year, probably by the time, I wouldn't say maybe by the time we get to BabsCon, maybe BabsCon at the most, but I believe any of the PonyCon events between late spring and into the summer, I believe that's when you're going to get more information, not just on the future of Make Your Mark, and not just the future of Tell Your Tale, and potentially a G6, but I definitely feel we're going to get information, good information, in my opinion, on Hasbro working something out with Discovery Family. That's just my opinion. Because, again, we may not have to worry about that because it looks like now with Allura as the main villainess, or at least for the time being, the main threat for the time being, I could see that being used as a clean slate for them. That's what I could see. I could see it being used as a clean slate for the characters. That's what I see. Like it's a clean slate, start new adventures, basically start doing your own thing, completely separate, from any connection you may have to G4. I could see that. But like I said, there might be some ideas and stories from G4 that they want to utilize in the future. I mean, look, I don't know who owns the rights to G1. But the fact that they were able to incorporate the Rainbow Locket, basically the Fire Ruby, whatever you want to call it, in the climax, in the conclusion, of Roots of All Evil Part 2 of Chapter 6, the fact that they were able to do that, it tells me that they're going to do whatever it takes to fully connect all the generations, maybe, or at least the ones that matter. What this tells me, basically, is there might be more of a connection storyline-wise that they want to tell between G4, between G5, G4, and maybe G1. And I'll get into that maybe in another audio video. But that it kind of tells me that that's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. But the only way they're going to be able to do that is to get the rights to G4, or at least some of the rights they need, to fully make a connection between G4 and G5 and potentially G1. That's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. But we'll have to see. But again, just like I said at the beginning, for anybody that's wondering and was curious as to why G5 make your mark by association tell your tale, and to an extent the comics was so mixed, was so much of a mismatch, if you will. For anybody that was wondering that, the reason being is because of Discovery Family and Hasbro not working something out with them when it was needed. So hopefully now Hasbro's going to work something out with them during this break, going into 2024, focusing on Tell Your Tale, essentially giving time for Make Your Mark to, be brought to life animation-wise, story-wise, and all that. And hopefully they'll be able to work something out to where they can get a deal made to where, where Discovery Family will allow certain characters and certain events and everything to be named, acknowledged, and utilized, as part of some kind of agreement to where they will get paid a reasonable amount. That's what I see happening. That's what I see happening, hopefully. But again, for anybody that was wondering, what happened here? There's your answer. There's your answer. Discovery Family owned the rights, owned the character licenses and rights of certain characters, some even being potentially the main six outside of Spike, and Twilight, there's your answer. There's your answer. That maybe outside of Spike, Twilight, and maybe the rest of the main six, I'm not really sure. There is your answer. It was Discovery Family that has the rights to certain characters and events and elements and all that, which is why, this first 6 chapters, this first half, as I look at it, the first season, was kind of an up and down, not knowing where to stop at, directionless roller coaster that it was. It had its moments, there's no doubt. I do agree with that. I mean, like I've said before, it shows improvement. It shows it was developing and growing. All of it, there was, from characters to animation to music, it showed towards the end that it's getting there. And now, now as we head into 2024, it's only going to get better through Tell Your Tale and, as well as potentially with the return of Make Your Mark. But that's pretty much the reason, guys. Discovery Family owned the rights to certain characters, places, stories, you name it. Well, I wouldn't say stories, but certain places, certain characters, and so on. And hopefully, like I mentioned, Hasbro will work something out during this time frame going into next year to where at either BabsCon or one of the few further PonyCons in the summer, like let's say, I don't know when Ponyville Cider Fest takes place. I think it takes place towards the end of the summer or something like that, or October. Maybe at Everfree Northwest, who knows? Maybe BabsCon, who knows? People might get an answer as to what's the future of Make Your Mark, and if it's coming back, will it come back with the potential of now finally being able to talk about and acknowledge certain things, certain characters and events from G4. Hopefully that does happen, which is why, like I said, I think Hasbro, think of them as you will. But hopefully, Hasbro is smart enough to work something out and get this done. Get something done to help really truly make up and connect G5 to G4. But yeah, the reason things felt a little off or a lot off in G5 outside of the movie, you can thank Discovery Family for that. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. What do you think of that? What do you think of the fact that it's Discovery Family and them owning the licenses for right now, the rights for right now to certain characters and events? What are your thoughts on that? And do you think Hasbro, between now and throughout next year, do you think they're going to be able to work something out with them, to be able to finally utilize certain characters and events of G4 in G5? Do you think they'll be able to do that? Or do you think maybe G5 is going to be better off without it now, since now they're going to be able to start off on a clean hoof, if you know what I mean? Let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below. Love to hear from each and every one of you on this. And until next time, I am out.